Oh, they doubted me, baby. Oh, they doubted me. Oh, they doubted me, Leroy. Oh, they doubted me. Look where I'm at. You see what's going on here?
Yeah.
Your boy had to go all the way to the Fort Lauderdale Improv to make this happen. Some wouldn't have done this, you know. Sometimes people's computer gets hacked and they just don't show up for the day.
Or
Oh,
you got a green screen.
true. It could be that. It could be that indeed.
Hey,
But yes.
can I just say this?
Yeah.
You are not allowed to do this ever again.
No. You don't understand. The fact that I'm even here, the fact that I'm even making here, this is an achievement. Sometimes, you know, you should have lost by 40, but you really only lost by 10. And that's what we like to call a moral victory, Leroy.
No, it's not.
No,
You still lost.
all right, that's fair. I will take that loss like a man and know that, you know, it's not about the last play, it's about the next play. And it's about the next man that we are about to have on our show right now. It is Tommy Tighe, our boy Tommy Tighe from the network broadcast, local broadcast, over 40 years of experience within the radio industry. Tommy, how you doing today, buddy?
I feel old after you bring that up, but thank you, Marcus. I appreciate that. With a 40 years experience. That's why sometimes people call me a legend. The only reason I'm a legend is because I've been around so long.
Well, that works.
Aged like fine wine, Tommy.
I like to think so, but I begin to wonder every once in a while. But thank you very much for the compliment. It's nice to be on with you guys.
So Tommy, this past Tuesday was the best game the Heat have played in a long time, if not all year, as far as putting it all together, nice mix of scoring and defense, and really like putting it all together. This was the first time we have seen this in a long time.
No question about it. I think you have to go back to the end of last month, Leroy, to be honest with you, when they laid it on Atlanta, of all teams, since we're playing them again tonight, and Indiana. And you started thinking, hey, you got all these home games coming up and you're scoring. Then all of a sudden it just went south in both directions, offensively and defensively. So it's nice to see. I understand who was not in the lineup the other night, but we've gone through this so many times over the last few weeks. Kawhi Leonard didn't show up. Jaylen Brown didn't show up in different games. You lost to those teams pretty convincingly. In a game like this, you had to come out there and play the way that you did. You know who you were up against, and you're right. I think at least in a while, this is one of the better all-around games this team is capable of. Now they just got to do something with it. You can't go out there and lay an egg tonight and then play against these lousy teams coming up on the road trip and expect to do anything if you're going to get to the play-in or the playoffs. But, yeah, it's a nice start. There's no question about it. They're playing well over this week. They got to keep it up.
Would you
Tommy,
say – go ahead. Would you say that, you know, this Heat team is probably more unique than any of the teams that Spo has had, because in the last 2 years, there's been so much youth injected into this team, and you kind of really can't coddle them like you want to because you need them to play, and you're relying on a lot of these young guys to play, and that's probably what has been part of the problem, is that we're doing old-time Heat stuff, but we don't have those veteran players that we've normally had.
It's interesting. That's a valid point, I think, Leroy, to be honest with you. When you think of Khalil Ware in the beginning of the season not getting any time, and a lot of us wondered, I'm sure you guys did as well, when the heck is this kid going to see the floor? You drafted him number one. You're telling me he's not ready? Is that why in November and early December he wasn't playing? And now you got to live with him. And this is a kid that's making mistakes, playing well lately. Give him credit. The last 4 games, he's had double-doubles, putting points on the board, grabbing rebounds, which is great to see. There's no question about it. But if you're going to rely on youth, you know how often Pat Riley went with rookies? Let's say seldom to never, right? That's the way you have to look at it. As you watch the Marlins go out on the field today, I'm not saying every one of them is a rookie, but you look at that batting order, and it's like back in the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid movies, Lord Baltimore was chasing after the guys, and all of a sudden they said, who are these guys? That's what Paul Newman and Robert Redford were saying. That's what I'm wondering about when you're playing young players. The average guy doesn't know who they are. People in our business don't have an idea really what to expect from them. But that's what you're hoping for when you bring in a Jaime Jaquez in his second year and as Niko Jovic, who's really improved and unfortunately has been out of the lineup for a while. But you live and die with youth, and unfortunately they're very talented, but, raw in certain areas that it's tough to try to – and you played professional sports. You would understand what it's like when you had a bunch of young guys trying to do something. Sure, they've got an awful lot of ability, but it only translates on the field, and that's where anybody cares about it. Right now, we're still seeing some spots where it looks good, and there's still some spots that we noticed in that 10-game losing streak that it's not. But at the rate it's going right now, get used to it, because I think they're going to continue to go with these young guys down the stretch.
I mean, one of the things that, I've seen in sports in general is that when you draft guys, and you can see this in football with quarterbacks, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everybody's playing their young guys because in 3 years or in 2 years, you need to know whether you can give this guy an extension. And what's happening in basketball, especially with the Heat, guys don't really play the first couple of years. Then you got to make that big decision in year 3 and 4. And I don't know how sure they are all the time. So would you think, like, I'm all for, and this is just the way I've seen sports kind of evolve. I'm all for, looking at teams like Detroit and you look at Houston. They played their young guys and said, we're going to take our lumps. But in 2 or 3 years, we're going to know what we have, and we're going to be able to kind of solidify what they can and can't do. And I think sometimes the Heat get a little lost in that we get to year 3 and 4 and we got to figure out, are we going to give this guy an extension? Are we going to let him go? And it's a whole lot of uncertainty when we get to year 3, 4.
Well, you're looking at a different situation when you're looking at Houston and Detroit. They're not accepting losing. I'm not saying that they are, but
right.
To build with the players that they did, yeah, you're going to have to expect a few losses. Do you think at 601 Biscayne Boulevard, anybody here is thinking of losses, that they're going to decide to go with Pelle Larsson more often than they have over the course of the season to see if they have something in 3 years? Tyler Hero is a prime example of that. Fabulous when he first showed up in the bubble. And then the next year he comes off the bench and he's the 6th man of the year. You do get to that point. You're right. Extremely talented player. But where do you build those next 3 years after that with him? They've decided that they're going to build their boat and put him in it. Same with Bam Adebayo. It works with certain guys, and with others, it certainly doesn't. And that's the decision they're going to have to come up with a few of their younger guys down the road. But I don't ever see this being a place that they're ever going to look like the Pistons have for the last 10, 11 years, or the Rockets, accepting the fact since the bubble that's all right. We're going to punt a few years and come back. Philly did it. Oklahoma City did it. Congratulations to the Thunder for being one of the best teams, if not the best team, in the game today. But I just don't see that ever happening here, because the way this team has been built ever since Pat showed up here in '95, they're always going to play it this way. And not everybody loves it, but I think that's the way that you have to go with it, because it's been so successful throughout all these years.
Yeah, agreed. They're not, they're looking at these young guys, and I can kind of sense it that, hey, look, we like you, we love what you do, but you're costing us games, and you need to learn. My only, the only question that I would have to that is, that was always easy when you had the veteran guys that could come in and actually produce. But with the injuries and things of that nature, you're kind of backed into a corner of having to rely on a lot of these young guys.
No question about it. I can go back to football that we both can relate to. That the team that I root for, unfortunately, these days, which has a pretty good legacy, is the New York Giants. And over the last week or so, they picked up 2 quarterbacks that make you think, well, is this the future direction they're going to go with their franchise with Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson? I highly doubt it, which is telling me that if you draft a quarterback next month in the first round, what are you going to do with him? Is he going to be like a Patrick Mahomes or a Carson Palmer that's going to sit on the bench for a year and learn from these 2 guys? I mean, which direction do you want to go when you play with your young guys? Do you want to sit them like they were doing with Ware and say, okay, we'll come back next year and see if he can play? Or do you want to see him out there? I think most people wanted to see, what the heck do you have?
Right.
And I think that's what you got with Ware from day number one when he finally got an opportunity. Everybody went in the month of January. Wow, look at this kid. Those lobs. How exciting is this? He can score. He can shoot. He can rebound. He can do a lot of good things. He blocks shots. Well, you wouldn't have known that if you kept him sitting there in a red shirt year the entire season. So I think, you've got these new toys to play with. I think you have to use them. But yeah, you're right. I don't see, there's no Dwayne Wade walking through the door like Rick Pitino once said about his guys in the Celtic organization. I don't see LeBron walking through this door and continuing to play with this franchise. That's the unfortunate thing that you have. Times change, players change. Unfortunately, some teams decide to do it in one way and other teams will do it another way in all sports. Miami is consistent in what they like to do with their franchise. Play the best players they have in an attempt to try to get to the best spot. It worked a couple of years ago. They came in eighth. Everybody gave them up for dead. And look what happened. They made a run at the end that was phenomenal. Who's to say that it won't happen again? I'm not going to be the guy to do that after I've seen it once. It's not easy to do. We know that. But I get the feeling that since it's worked for how long, and I'm an old school guy, it's worked for 30 years. Why will it not work this time? I get the feeling that maybe it won't this time right at this year, but it will consistently be the formula that will work for this franchise.
And if I could read lips, Tommy, I would tell you what he said.
I said, I apologize, I pulled a Tobin, that we've seen Jimmy Butler underwhelming in his return. We've seen, unfortunately, the blood clots that are plaguing Dame Lillard at the moment. It's easy to talk about all the times that Pat Riley has missed. Now being a Monday morning quarterback and looking at things in retrospect, getting a full account of all things, do you think that Pat Riley deserves an apology from Heat Nation?
I don't think he minds what happens because he understands the job and there will be criticism. But you look back to what this franchise was, and I wasn't living here. I'll be honest with you guys. I was living up in the New York area, and up there they kind of looked at the Miami Heat as just another team that nobody thought anything of until he left the Knicks to come down here. You went, uh-oh. Once you know that that's going to happen, and these people can feel it. The ones that have been around here since 1995 felt it. They knew excellence was coming into this franchise the moment he would walk in the door. So I'm not going to be the guy that's going to sit there and try to tell anybody how to build their franchise. This has been built the way it's been, that it's one of the most successful ones over the last 3 decades for one reason, and his name is on the court out there. I don't think he doesn't care if he gets an apology, I don't think. I mean, he goes to the beat of his own drummer. If he makes mistakes, heck, I'm probably going to make mistakes today. Tonight, Saturday at the Philly game, on Heat Weekly, we all are capable of making mistakes. I will make my share of them over time. We all do. He's human. I'm human. You guys are. So I don't think he needs an apology like that. He knows what he's done for these people. He knows what his standard is of excellence from the Lakers to the Knicks to this point right now. I don't think he has to apologize or accept an apology for anybody.
I think these are the times where you look at, and I can say it because it's 100% accurate, but you see some of the moves that they make, and even though they're not winning as much as you want, like you look at the results and look at the end result, even though you weren't happy when it was happening, and you go, okay, I can see it. I can see it. I'm not happy. Maybe the team isn't where I want it to be. But that decision, we were better off making that decision or doing it that way, even though it may, it may hurt a little bit. I think that's how I am like with Pat Riley, is that sure, we all wanted Dame. Sure, there were some that said, if you don't pay Jimmy, he's going to be a problem. And Pat stood stead and said, no, I'm not giving him an extension. And so all that stuff played out. But when you look at it now, and I said this, Tommy, Jimmy being the number one on the Warriors kind of looked like the Heat when he was here at times. when they just didn't score. And so if I can see that, maybe Pat was like, no, we need scoring. We need somebody who's going to actually, take the reins and be that bona fide number one, kind of like Tyler's trying to do now. But now you got Wiggins, who has been amazing when he's played. And so you kind of look at the results and go, even though I'm not happy with the results, I can see where this is going, and you got to kind of feel good about that, even though the team isn't where you want it to be right now.
No, I agree with you. I think that if you're a Heat fan, you're probably a little bit disappointed over what's gone on over the course of the season. But you just have to look at what the track record is for what this team has done in the past. Sure, I know it's a what have you done for me lately type of business in sports. I understand it wholeheartedly. I root for some of these teams that haven't won in an awful long period of time. This is one that you keep thinking that every single time you step on the floor, you're going to get what you're going to get from them, whatever effort it's going to be. I think they've done well in the last week, showing that there is some potential for what could happen over the course of the remainder of the season. But, that doesn't make you feel any better when the record is 10 games under the 500 mark. But it's been a crazy year. There's no question in anybody's mind. Injuries do play a part in it. Transactions will play a part of it. I think everybody's done the best they possibly can with what they have. But, I can understand anybody being frustrated, including the players and the coaches, for what's happened. But, they'll take it the way that it is, play tonight, play this weekend, see what happens after that. And, I just get the feeling that you're going to be in a decent position down the road, whatever that's going to be, whoever you're going to get, whoever you're going to keep. I just like the position that you're in because you have the people running the show that know how to run a show.
Tommy, I watched Spo on the sidelines, and he just looks like just so frustrated at times. But then I start thinking, what was more frustrating for Spo, you think? Was it the 11-30 and then 30-11 team, or this team that just has lost games, and at the end of the game, everybody just stands looking at each other going, how did this happen?
Well, I can't gauge anybody's level of frustration, to be honest with you. But to answer the question to this point, 11-30, they just didn't have the horses to do anything. I think this team is much better than the 11-30 group, even though that team turned it up a notch in the second half of the year and played the way that they did. This team, from top to bottom, is a much better club than that club was. Mm-hmm. So I can't answer. I can't speak for anybody else. Can't speak for you guys or for anybody here in the organization. But you'd have to be frustrated when you think you can play a certain way, and you're not playing up to the capabilities with the roster that you have. And a lot of it's trying to get, at least in the last few weeks, getting everybody up to speed that just joined the club. It's not very often that 3 players come to your team at the trading deadline. A couple years ago, you had 2, Love and Zeller. Last year, you had Rozier. You integrate one guy into the lineup, okay, it's tough. You try to put 2 into the lineup, that's a little bit tougher. 3 into the lineup and replacing one of the more popular players in the team's recent history, that's extremely tough. So I can understand when it's not working. Whatever I'm doing, if it's not working, you get frustrated that it's not working. I'm sure you guys do when you're doing what you're doing for a living. And I can't really say that one year was worse than the other, because I never look back at any one year and just say, oh man, that year was terrible, we didn't make the playoffs. Hey, that year was great. It's obvious we won championships. It's going to happen in both ways. I don't know for sure how Erik feels right now, but I do know that he likes what he has at his disposal right now, and he's extremely optimistic from what I hear over the last couple games of what this group is capable of in being competitive down the stretch.
Tommy, one more before we get you out of here. We went from one losing streak to the beginning of a very short winning streak as of now. Does this mean that we are poised for another play-in, or do you think that this team, although getting these last 2 victories, still hasn't figured it out, and we should just be counting ping pong balls as of right now?
No, I never go that way, to be honest with you. I think that you're looking at what's going to happen. You're going to be playing another game. Now, whether you're going to somehow make it to the 6th seed, that's asking an awful lot considering how well Detroit is battling Milwaukee for 5th. So I get a feeling that, yes, you're going to continue to be playing basketball after April the 13th. Now, whether it's 1 game, 2 games, or maybe even 9 games if you get to the first round against Cleveland, I mean, that's the optimum goal, at least right now with what you have at this point. But I'm not thinking anything. I don't think there's anybody sitting in this building right now, even the guy that's mopping the floor over to my immediate right now, that's going to tell you that he's given up on the season, that we're going to start looking to try to get the number 1 pick. I think everybody looks at it the same realistic way, that this team is capable of a run right now. You win tonight's game. I know it's not saying an awful lot, but you've beaten this team by scoring 131 points against them. You've got Philadelphia and Washington who have pretty much given up on the season. After that, some competitive games in the last couple of weeks. But still, if you can continue to put some type of a roll together, I think you'll do well in the play-in and get to the first round. Where it goes after that, I can't even fathom myself. I'm taking it one step at a time, but I don't think they're looking at anything other than the fact of playing more basketball in the middle of April.
Tommy, I appreciate you giving us your time. I know you got to shoot around in a little bit. I want to ask one thing of you. Never change, Tommy Tighe.
You reach a certain age, Marcos, you can't change whether you want to or not.
Well, I thank
Worse
you,
for
Tommy.
you guys when you get older.
I'm already on the back nine, Tommy. I ain't got. There's not much left.
Nah, you don't look a day over.
Turn, Leroy. Come on, don't go there.
Yeah, you're still young, Leroy. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, he is Tommy Tighe. You can catch him during the Heat broadcast tonight. We take on the Hawks. You'll catch him on the network, the network post, the local post, any possible way that you can listen to Heat basketball.
Heat Weekly
is there. Heat Weekly, of course, every Saturday. Thank you again for joining us, Tommy, and for those who are